Part 43. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 421. Chapter 421. Don't make trouble for the boss. Chu Chen allowed her to scold her without saying anything back. His expression remained very indifferent, and he obviously didn't take it to heart. Xiaoling became even more angry. The carriage was very quiet. The assistant and makeup artist were silent and did not dare to make a sound. Xiaoling glared at Chu Chen and gritted her teeth. Okay, you're fine. Where is Pei Xian now? She suddenly wanted to go to him and ask him why he allowed such chaos to spread outside. The Emperor's public opinion monitoring department was just freeloaders. What? Going to bed with someone? Those people were not worthy of desecrating the love between her and Li Lei with such malice. Chu Chen said, the boss is having a very important meeting at the company, and it will be held until very late. Xiaoling told the driver, go to the company. Chu Chen, Miss Ye, I don't recommend that you disturb him at this time. Xiaoling was angry again, when do I go to find him and do I need your approval? I don't dare. Chu Chen lowered his eyebrows, but did not hesitate to speak. Every meeting recently will affect the life and death of the emperor. Miss Ye, as long as you still have a little conscience, please be considerate to the boss. It's not easy, don't cause trouble for him at this time. Conscience, she laughed angrily, who has no conscience first, let her and Li Lei be torn apart. Chu Chen lowered his eyelids and refused to answer. Go to the company, Xiaoling shouted to the driver. The driver glanced at Chu Chen in the rearview mirror with some embarrassment. Mr. Chu. Send Miss Ye home, Chu Chen said. The driver had already received instructions from Pei Xian a long time ago to listen to Mr. Chu when Miss Ye and Mr. Chu have differences of opinion. When given the order, he turned the steering wheel and drove in the direction of the villa. Xiaoling was so angry that she spoke volubly. Chu Chen, don't go too far. Are you afraid that if I disturb your master, he will collapse, and you will become a lost dog? He still lowered his eyelids slightly and remained silent, like an old monk in meditation. The car fell into silence again. Such a sensitive topic made the assistant and makeup artist on pins and needles. They all made excuses and got out of the car. In the nanny's car, apart from the driver, Chu Chen and her were the only two people left. The driver is also Pei Xian's confidant, so Chu Chen doesn't shy away from talking. Miss Ye, you don't know that the boss has not had an easy life over the years. Xiaoling was slightly startled, then sneered, who do you think has it easy? The boss handles many things by himself and never lets me tell you. He ignored her sarcasm and continued talking on his own. He is always like this and doesn't let the people he likes worry about. The person I like. Her heart tightened, and there was a slight pain in the deepest part of her heart. After a moment, she still sneered, like. He just treats me as a phantom. She still doesn't understand what Pei Xian loves. It's probably the stunning Xiaoling in her previous life, so she can be cruel in this life. After torturing her, her attitude changed drastically after learning that she was Xiaoling herself. Chu Chen glanced at her. You and Xiaoling are indeed very similar this time. He used you instead of you. Both are equally naive and unreasonable. Xiaoling was stunned for a moment before she remembered to retort, you are naive, your whole family is naive and unreasonable, she said fiercely. You scold us like this, aren't you afraid that I will file a complaint with your master? He said calmly, besides complaining, what else can you do? Xiaoling choked and suddenly realized that he was right. She actually knew nothing and was helpless when encountering a slightly bigger trouble. She suddenly felt useless, watching bad things happen one after another but unable to change them. Her expression darkened. Don't cause trouble to the boss, Chu Chen said. Xiaoling was silent. In the carriage, Chu Chen was wearing a dark gray suit, his deep eyes hidden in the shadows, his face cold and hateful. He dutifully dropped her off at the door of his house before leaving. At night, Xiaoling had insomnia. At 1 o'clock in the morning, Pei Ziyan came back dressed in starlight. Xiaoling sat on the sofa in the living room and looked at him. She found that he was much more tired than usual, with slight wrinkles between his eyebrows and blue eyes. She suddenly felt very sad, and a dull pain spread in her heart. However, she had not forgotten the cruel things he had done to her, and she endured the pain with all her strength. Pei Ziyan was a little surprised when he saw her. "Xiaoling, why aren't you sleeping yet?" He recalled that many years ago, when she was not reborn, the two of them were deeply in love, and she always liked to sit in the living room and wait for him to come home at night. However, in this life, she no longer has such a habit, and he will not be so presumptuous as to think that she will suddenly change his mind. Xiaoling remained silent. Pei Ziyan asked her softly, "Are you hungry? Why don't you ask Mama Joe to make some midnight snacks?" She watched in silence as he ordered Joe Ma to make midnight snacks. In fact, the kitchen was already prepared. He was always busy these days, and Joe Ma would make soup for him every night. Those soups were all Pei Ziyan's favorite flavors, and Xiaoling usually went to bed very early, so Joe's mother had not prepared any for her. She heard him talking to Joe's mother, "Make a bowl of shredded chicken noodles for Xiaoling. Shred the chicken very finely and add more chopped green onions." He always remembers what she likes to eat, even down to the details. Not long after, the noodles were served. Xiaoling didn't want to eat, so Pei Ziyan said, "Eat some with me." She looked at his haggard face, and suddenly she didn't want to be angry with him, so she followed him to the table. Joe Ma's cooking was very good, so the two of them ate quietly. After a while, Xiaoling was full, and Pei Ziyan added another bowl. "You didn't have dinner," she couldn't help but ask him. "I had a simple meal with several directors during the meeting," he said, and added, "I'm not actually hungry, but I haven't eaten shredded chicken noodles and sea cucumber soup for a long time. They tasted good." "What is this, an explanation?" Unexpectedly, Xiaoling thought of Chu Chen's words, "The boss is always like this and never worries the people he likes. I have mixed feelings in my heart." She raised her head and looked at him. "I don't deserve this." "Isn't it worth it?" He knew very well that she was talking about the business war with Tianyi, but he brought up the topic lightly. "You don't need to worry about these things. I will give you and the baby a stable environment." "You." She hesitated, then said, "Don't get angry with Tianyi, okay?" He glanced at her and said, "Don't you understand who is releasing Qi now? The current situation is like a peak duel between two martial arts masters. Their internal strength is already competing, and whoever gives in first will die first." He said, "Do you think it doesn't matter if I let go? The emperor will still function." She was stunned by his question. "He is so powerful, isn't he?" Pei Ziyan smiled gently, "I'm very happy that you have such confidence in me," but his expression didn't look happy at all. The smile didn't reach his eyes, but there was a hint of sadness. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 422. Chapter 422 Reunion with Wei Shaiyin. Seeing her, her heart tightened inexplicably. "What if I am the loser in this business war?" he asked softly. Xiaoling was startled and knocked over the glass on the table, spilling half of the glass of water. "You will lose." His eyes narrowed slightly and he stared at her for a long time. "No." She breathed a sigh of relief inexplicably. "Yes, Pei Ziyan is so powerful, how could he lose?" But she became nervous again. Then, him, she didn't dare to call Li Lei by his name in front of him. Pei Ziyan narrowed his eyes slightly again, like a tiger with unpredictable moods, gloomily looking at the prey under its paws. Her hair stood up at the sight of him, and she shrank into the chair. He made no further move, stood up, and walked towards the bedroom. Xiaoling was troubled and uneasy. not knowing what would happen to Lilei. She unconsciously twisted her clothes with her fingers, over and over again. After an unknown amount of time, I heard a deep voice, "I won't kill him all, if this is your wish." She looked up and found that Peizian had turned back at some point and was standing by the stairs looking at her. The light was dim, and his tall figure was half hidden, cut into pieces by the light, and looked so uncertain and swaying. Suddenly, Xiaoling was not sure whether things were really as easy as he said, and whether he could really defeat Lilei. He was even busier in the following days. The two of them didn't see each other for many days. Occasionally, Xiaoling came back from her dream at midnight and opened her eyes dimly, only to find him sitting on the bedside, staring at her for a long time and tenderly, his fingers gently stroking her cheeks and hair. "Be careful and treat it like a treasure." Xiaoling is very worried about him, but also very conflicted. If Peizian is well, it means that Lilei is not well. She doesn't want anything to happen to Lilei. She missed Lilei very much. Now, accompanying Peizian, I see how busy and haggard Peizian is. Lilei didn't even have anyone around him who knew how to feel cold and hot. How lonely it must be to fight alone. She wanted to inquire about Tianyi, but Chu Chen was very serious about it and would never let her have a chance to contact Tianyi's people. Even when she met Feng Kun, he accompanied her throughout the whole process. Xiaoling spent a lot of time paying attention to entertainment news and financial news, paying attention to even the smallest bits of news. There were many terms she didn't understand, so she bought a dictionary and looked it up carefully. She discovered that they were fighting fiercely, and the war spread across the board, spreading from the entertainment industry to major surrounding industries. The two companies' real estate, financial investments, and other various industries were all involved, and they fought to the death. Chuchen is right, this is a life and death struggle. Some financial analysis experts said that Lilei was crazy and used Tianyi's foundation of only a few years to challenge the emperor's more than a century-old hegemony. Some experts said that although the emperor was a big tree with deep roots, its internal forces were complicated, and Peizian had to balance the various internal factions. The interests between them are not as good as Lilei's single-handed creation of Tianyi, with everyone working together as one, and with the support from the overseas Li family behind the scenes. It is still unclear who will win. There are different opinions and the outcome is unpredictable. In the end, it always comes down to the reason for this war. I don't know who did the public relations. Today's reports mostly analyze the general trend of the entertainment industry, saying that the rise of Tianyi and the battle with the emperor are inevitable, and Xiaoling's transfer, just a trigger. The public relations was good, and the negative news about her suddenly subsided. Although there were still many rosy conjectures, they were no longer so unbearable. After this incident, she has become the hottest topic in the entertainment industry. The number of invitations has increased several times more than before. Chu Chen is so busy every day that he has to help Peizian handle official business and has to pay 120,000 points. The spirit screens the notices for her. He is very dedicated and praises her wholeheartedly, saying that now is the best time. If you seize it, you can become a superstar in one fell swoop. Xiaoling didn't want to take advantage of such a difficult moment for Peizian and Lilei to step on them to get the upper hand, and she also had to raise a baby. Kei Chuchen said that the time is also about luck. If you can go ahead, go ahead. Following his arrangements to receive the announcement, she unexpectedly met Wei Shaiyin on this day. I haven't seen Wei for a long time, and it feels like a lifetime ago. She saw him arguing with a person in charge of the TV station, or rather, he was arguing unilaterally. The person in charge listened respectfully with an embarrassed smile on his face. As she got closer, she heard clearly what they were arguing about. I don't care what program you have next, vacate the studio I want within 10 minutes. It was your lousy director who made the program like this. If you don't reshoot it, you won't need to cooperate with me in the future. Wei Xiao's voice is clear, condescending, and commanding. Xiaoling knew that he was recently doing a music review program for the TV station. The audience loved his sharp and vicious tongue. His ratings kept hitting new highs. Now, he was already a great figure that the TV station could not afford to offend. The person in charge wiped his sweat repeatedly until he looked up and saw Xiaoling standing behind him. "Miss Ye," he shouted as if he had received an amnesty and saw a savior. "Come and persuade Mr. Wei, he wants to temporarily requisition your studio." Xiaoling was startled. Wei Shaiyin turned around and saw her, and was also startled. After a few seconds of silence, she said, "Which studio do you want to use?" Wei Shaiyin turned to the person in charge coldly, "Why didn't you tell me that Yezingling's stall was next?" The person in charge was wronged. "I haven't finished speaking yet, but you interrupted me when you heard the word emperor." Wei Shaiyin. Xiaoling. Chuchen, who came with Xiaoling, crossed his arms and watched the show, and said to Wei Shaiyin, "Do you still want to use it?" Wei Shaiyin glanced at him coldly and said to the person in charge, "At this time tomorrow, we will change the director and reshoot." The person in charge breathed a sigh of relief and quickly thanked him for his consideration. Chu Chen smiled, with an expression that he had expected. Xiaoling felt uncomfortable because of his smile. She didn't look at him, but raised her head to face Wei Shaiyin. "If you need it urgently, I'll give it to you." Wei Shaiyin said, "Don't you know, Li Lei said that Tianyi will not any announcements from you." Xiaoling then remembered that the emperor and Tianyi were fighting fiercely. From his words, it sounded like they were often fighting each other. But before, her impression of this business war was only based on news reports and the faint tiredness between Pei Xian's brows, and it had no impact on her own life. Now it seems that not only the emperor protected her well, but also Li Lei gave in to her at every turn. Feeling sad, she lowered her head. Wei Shaiyin took a few steps forward and said, "Xiaoling, I want to talk to you alone." Before Xiaoling could answer, Chu Chen had already stopped her. "Ms. Ye is very busy. Sorry, I don't have time to chat with you." He wears many hats, one of which is to keep an eye on her. Xiaoling was angry and glared at him fiercely, barely cursing, but he remained calm and refused to allow her to be alone with Wei Shaiyin. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 423. Chapter 423 Chase. Wei Shaiyin was impatient, grabbed Xiaoling's wrist and walked out quickly. His legs were long and his steps were long. She had to jog all the way to keep up. She couldn't help but say, "Slow down. I'm not feeling well." She was no better than before. She was pregnant and couldn't do strenuous exercise. Wei Shaiyin was startled, and his pace slowed down, but he said, "Zhu11, you deserve to be watched by him." Xiaoling just took a small breath and protected her abdomen with one hand, unable to speak. Behind him, there was the sound of footsteps, and it was Chu Chen chasing after him. Wei pulled her and said, "Hurry, my car is at the door." Xiaoling was so confused that she tripped on the steps when she went out and almost fell down. Fortunately, Wei Shaiyin had quick eyesight and quick hands to support her, pressing her against the wall in an extremely ambiguous posture. Xiaoling bared her teeth and pushed him, ignoring the cement dust in her hands, and roared, "You are very heavy." His white linen shirt was imprinted with her paw prints, and he glared at her, "My clothes? If you don't let me go, I'll kick you and roll you around in the flower bed. You're holding my arm, how can I let you go?" They were arguing and trying to stand still. In the chaos, they suddenly heard several clicks of the shutter, followed by extremely excited screams, "Ye Xingling! Wei Shaiyin!" Wei Shaiyin reacted very quickly and immediately moved sideways to block Xiaoling's face. Xiaoling was grateful at first, then angry. Are you a pig? Why do you want to block me when people call me by my name? If you block me like this, your posture will be even more ambiguous, okay? His face turned dark, and before he could reply, he was lifted away from her by a huge force. Why don't you leave quickly? It was Chu Chen's furious voice. Xiaoling turned her head and realized that he had caught up with them at some point. Not far behind him, several reporters were rushing towards them as if they were shot. Wei Shaiyin was also frightened. She and Chu Chen worked together to support Xiaoling, who was said to be unwell, and got into the Ferrari parked at the door. Quick! Chu Chen decisively closed the door. Wei Shaiyin started the car with a swish and sped out like an arrow off the string. Just when Xiaoling was about to breathe a sigh of relief, Chu Chen frowned at him. Drive faster, the paparazzi are following behind. Xiaoling turned around, and sure enough, there was a car following them closely behind them. It seemed to be a modified Ford. It came very fast and kept closing the distance with them. She couldn't help but complain about Wei Shaiyin. Did you buy your Ferrari for free? Isn't it embarrassing if you can't outrun a Ford? Wei Shaiyin snorted coldly and stepped on the accelerator to accelerate instantly. Xiaoling was caught off guard, and her nose almost hit the back of the front seat. She scolded him again. Take it easy. I told you I'm not feeling well. Was your driving skills taught by your primary school Chinese teacher? Wei Shaiyin gritted her teeth with a cold face. Yes, Yinling, if you make any more noise, I will throw you away. She was depressed and shut up when people were under the eaves. He drove to the maximum speed limit allowed by the road, but the Ford was obviously very skilled at driving and was still pursuing him. Not only was he unable to get away, it was even difficult to distance himself. Get on the highway, get on the highway. She still couldn't hold it back and shouted angrily. Wei Shaiyin, it's so noisy. Xiaoling, hurry up and get on the highway and drive to the outskirts of the city. Use your Ferrari's performance. This is a sports car. Do you understand a sports car? Wei Xiao said angrily. I don't understand, do you understand? But he kept turning his hands on the steering wheel. Take the highway. Ford followed them onto the highway. Wei Shaiyin stepped on the accelerator to the bottom, increased the speed, and then increased the speed, but it was still to no avail. The car behind was so skilled that she couldn't get rid of it no matter what. A Ford can chase down a Ferrari like this, which is quite capable, Chu Chen commented calmly. Wei Shaiyin's face turned dark and she turned the steering wheel hard again. Chu Chen couldn't sit still and almost fell onto Xiaoling. Xiaoling quickly avoided him with her eyes and hands, raised her head and shouted at Wei, are you really a primary school student? Wei Xiao's voice was very angry, you do it, you go up to Nokanab. Xiaoling was also furious, if I can do it, I'll do it. If I had driven away earlier, I would have gotten rid of the paparazzi behind me. Then open one and show it to me. Okay, get out of the way. She pushed Chu Chen away with one hand, climbed from the back seat to the passenger seat, and said to Wei Shaiyin, I'll drive. Wei Shaiyin looked at her in shock, not expecting her to be serious about it. Don't be kidding, you only learned to drive after you left Tianyi. High-speed driving is not a child's play. Who are you kidding me? Just because you are not good at it doesn't mean that I am not good at it. In her previous life, she was a senior member of the supercar club. She also owned a Ferrari like this, fiery red, and she named it Crimson Wing. They all said that she seemed to be flying when driving, and people kept coming to challenge her. Later, she made a bet with someone to go racing on a cliff. Although she won, Pei Xian was very angry. He rarely got so angry. He ordered someone to destroy her Crimson Wings on the spot and banned her from touching sports cars again. Since then, she has never driven a car again. But at this moment, maybe it was Wei Shaiyin's poor skills, or maybe it was the paparazzi who were chasing after her that made her irritated. She finally couldn't restrain the impulse in her heart and said to him repeatedly, "I'll drive." Wei Shaiyin was doubtful, "Are you really okay?" Xiaoling reassured him again and gave him a series of Ferrari data and racing skills. He finally gave up his doubts and gave up the driving seat to her. The moment she touched the steering wheel, a familiar and nostalgic feeling came to Xiaoling. She recalled the reckless racing at that time. No matter how angry Pei Ziyan was, she was never really afraid. At that time, he doted on her so much that even if she stabbed her in a big way, he would not really hurt her. But now, everything is different. She would rather die in an accident than be tortured by him in such cruel ways. Hold the steering wheel in your hand, the palms of your hands are slightly warm. Wei Shaiyin shouted something in his ears, and Ford behind him chased her more and more closely. As soon as Xiaoling turned the steering wheel, the Ferrari changed lanes instantly and passed between two large trucks. Unexpectedly, his view was blocked by them, and he didn't see a car in front of him, which was about to hit him. Wei Shaiyin exclaimed crazily. Xiaoling's heart skipped a beat, and she turned the steering wheel at the last moment. The Ferrari barely missed the car and rushed straight towards the guardrail on the highway. Wei Shaiyin exclaimed again, and this time even Chu Chen exclaimed. Xiaoling's palms tightened, her eyes fixed on the front, and the steering wheel turned sharply again. At the critical moment of life and death, she turned away from the guardrail with a few centimeters of gap and drove onto the right road. Cold sweat all over. Wei Shaiyin gasped for breath, "You're crazy." Xiaoling didn't speak. For a moment, she really wanted to hit the guardrail and end it all, leaving all grudges and oaths behind. But there were Wei Shaiyin and Chu Chen in the car, and their screams brought her back to reality instantly. What's more important is that she and Li Lei's child is still in her belly. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 424. Chapter 424, Fear of Being Close to Home. Xiaoling gritted her teeth and drove the car forward. Wei Shaiyin was very angry. "My car is 10 million yuan less, if it crashes, can you afford to pay for it? Isn't it just a car? Our boss has a lot of money." Chu Chen was also very angry and did not forget to sarcastically say, "But yes, Xingling, if you want to die, don't drag me with you." She glanced at him coldly in the rear-view mirror. Wei Shaiyin hated seeing others bullying her friends, so she immediately turned her gun and said, "If you don't want to sit down, get out. I'll open the door for you to get out now." Chu Chen glanced at the scene that was rapidly regressing into an afterimage outside the car window and shut up. So Wei Shaiyin directed his firepower at Xiaoling again, "Are you seeking death? You also said that my driving skills were taught by my primary school Chinese teacher, but you were taught by your kindergarten aunt." Xiaoling changed the subject, "Where's the Ford behind?" Wei Shaiyin turned around and looked at it for a long time. "It's still there, but the distance is wider. There are a few lunatics in the world who dare to overdo it like this." Chu Chen sneered again. Xiaoling didn't say anything. There was a big drift at the corner in front of her. He was thrown from one end of the back seat to the other. Her face turned pale and she wanted to say something. She changed gears to speed up and pushed him who had just climbed out of the back seat. "Press it back down again. Slow down, slow down, slow down." Before Chu Chen could say anything, Wei Shaiyin was already going crazy. "You're speeding, you're speeding." Xiaoling glanced at the dial and saw that the speed was only 150 per hour. She really didn't know why he was nervous. Did you buy the sports car just for viewing? She simply felt that this Ferrari was not worth it. Wei Shaiyin screamed, "The maximum speed limit on the expressway is 120. Do you know 120? And, Drive slow. Slow down. She turned the steering wheel and drove towards the fork in the road. She was familiar with the city. There was a little traveled track in the suburbs. She used to play with people in the supercar club. Slow down, slow down, slow down, 180, you are crazy, 200, 220, 240. Then, his voice became softer, and I don't know whether he was frightened or resigned to his fate. With her ears clean, Xiaoling drove forward with ease, at a speed of just over 200 per hour. She had been used to driving in her previous life, and it was very stable. If she hadn't been afraid that Wei Shaiyin would really go crazy, she would have really wanted to try this. The limit of a Ferrari, such a good sports car, it is a waste to have such an owner. Easily get rid of Ford. In her previous life, she was an undefeated legend in the city's supercar club. Not to mention the huge gap between Ford and Ferrari, even if the car chasing her now was a car with better configuration, she could get rid of it. The Ferrari stopped on the roadside. In the wilderness, the sunset was like blood. Chuchen opened the car door and rushed out to vomit. Wei Shaiyin was okay. Although her face was as pale as paper, she could still sit in the car while shaking. You're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy. He pointed at her like Mrs. Xianglin. Xiaoling glanced at him lightly, then locked the door of the Ferrari and closed the window. What are you doing? He was startled. Xiaoling put her elbows on the steering wheel and rubbed her forehead. Outside the car window, Chu Chen's crazy slapping sounds could be heard. Then Wei Shaiyin realized, are you guarding against him? He became happy again. Leave him here, let's drive back. She shook her head. Wei Shaiyin said angrily, do you know what's good? He is obviously sent by Pei Ziyan to monitor you. I feel sick when I see his face. You should deal with him as soon as possible and finish the matter as soon as possible. How to deal with it? She smiled bitterly and asked feebly, murder and set fire. Abandon the body in the wilderness. It would be okay if I died, the emperor would still operate as usual, but if he has some shortcomings, pay. She stopped. In fact, even if she didn't understand business, she knew Chu Chen's importance to the emperor. She overheard someone saying that if Chu Chen's surname was Pei, he would be the undisputed successor. And what does she mean? It's just a doll, a stand-in, a beautiful doll. Do you think you have caused trouble for Pei Ziyan? Wei Xiao calmed down and asked, I just wanted to ask you, Xiaoling, what is going on between you and Pei Ziyan during this time? You were deprived of the emperor's power by him at that time. I thought you were just helpless, but then Li Lei came to find you. Why didn't you go with him? The things in this process were too complicated. Xiaoling didn't know how to answer, so she could only stay silent. Wei Shaiyin said, I really feel sorry for Li Lei. Her nose was sore and she took a deep breath. Wei Shaiyin looked at her expression and asked, Xiaoling, who do you like? It's impossible for Li Lei and I. Why? He was a little angry. What method did Pei Ziyan use to make you become like this? Why can't it be possible for you and Li Lei? Tell us what difficulties you have and let everyone find a solution together. It's better than if you don't do anything now. It's a good thing. Yasin Ling, look at how thin you are now, and your face is ugly. Have you ever looked in the mirror? When were you so bad when you were with Li Lei? He finished a long sentence and glared at her fiercely. She looked away and whispered, it's impossible. She felt uncomfortable and her voice was hoarse. So he also fell silent. Li Lei has risked all his family fortune for you. Away, tell him to stop. Even if he wins, even if Pei Ziyan goes bankrupt, I can't go back. Wei Shaiyin laughed briefly and bitterly, do you think he will listen? Yes, she had known for a long time that Li Lei seemed to be very talkative on the surface, but in fact he was so stubborn that even 9 cows could not get him back from the decisions he made. However, the Pei family tree has deep roots. He will not win. Why? Because Pei Xian has never lost. She raised her eyes and looked at Wei Shayin. Do you think Li Lei can win? The cauldron will sink the boat, Wei Shayin said. Besides, Li Lei has never lost. Xiaoling didn't know what to do. Wei Shayin said, maybe you should persuade him yourself. He handed over the phone. Xiaoling took the phone and hesitated for a moment, feeling a little shy about being close to home. When Wei Shayin saw her mother-in-law, she rushed to help her dial Li Lei's number. The music started playing, and soon the call was connected. Hello, Wei, it was Li Lei on the other end of the phone. Xiaoling listened to his voice blankly, not daring to speak for fear of breaking the calm. Why don't you speak? Li Lei paused, then suddenly changed his tone, revealing an unusual seriousness. If nothing happens, I will hang up. Remember to go back to the company for a meeting tonight. The market has been facing great resistance recently. I need to listen to you. Views. He rarely speaks in such a tone. It can be seen that he, like Pei Xian, does not have an easy life. A trace of pain spread in her heart, and finally, she couldn't help but said, stop fighting with the emperor. Li Lei was silent for a moment. Xiao Ling. It's me, Xiaoling responded softly, holding the phone and not knowing what to say. Over there, Wei Shayin got out of the car silently and closed the door for her. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 425. Chapter 425 Fan Meeting. On the phone, it was so quiet that you could hear your breathing. After a long time, Li Lei said, are you with Awei? Are you okay? She responded softly and repeated, don't be angry with the emperor. She didn't dare to ask him if he was okay, didn't dare to show the slightest concern. She couldn't give him hope, she had to make him give up. If we are destined not to be together, long-term pain is worse than short-term pain. His voice is very gentle, like a finely entangled net, making people sink into it. This is not about being angry. If you can only return to me by completely defeating the emperor, then I will make sure that the emperor cannot turn over. I said, I am voluntary. Xiaoling closed her eyes and said cruelly, Li Lei, stop wishful thinking. All my unhappiness and unhappiness are just your imagination. Here, Zi Hung, I am fine. If you really care about me, don't let me worry about him every day. Do you know? I feel very sad when he goes out late and comes home again. Actually, it was clearly him, the man on the other side of the phone, who she felt distressed about. However, she was so far away that she couldn't say anything. I don't believe it. Li Lei was very stubborn. Xiaoling, our relationship was so good before, why did you suddenly fall in love with someone else? Tell you, I can't believe it at all. You owe me an explanation. Xiaoling tried to persuade him, but for a long time, he still couldn't listen to a word. Xiaoling, open the car door suddenly, he said. Xiaoling was startled, as if she had a telepathy. She raised her head and looked forward. The sun was setting in the west, and the huge setting sun spread out on the distant horizon like a background of molten gold. In the blood-colored light and shadow, there was a man standing in front of the car against the light, holding a phone in his hand. He was thinner and more unkempt than before. His gray clothes were flying in the wind, and he was lonely. Her heart twitched slightly, and there was a faint pain. Put your hand on your lower abdomen unconsciously, baby, that's the father. Open the door, he called and looked directly at the front window of the Ferrari. Wei Shayin, a pretentious Virgo, had the entire car covered with film so that the situation inside the car could not be seen from the outside. Xiaoling, however, could see Li Lei clearly while sitting in the car. He should have urgently located her location after getting through the phone, found her location and rushed over as soon as possible just to see her. Xiaoling stared at his face lustfully, and even blinking felt luxurious. However, she did not have the courage to open the door. She was afraid that she would lose control as soon as she opened the door, and she was afraid that she would not be able to say any cruel words in front of him. "Give up," she said after a lot of effort. "Lilay, don't be persistent, give up on me, and let go of yourself." She raised her hand little by little, started the sports car, and reversed the direction. "Xiaoling," he stopped in front of the car, "don't leave." She gritted her teeth, became cruel, stepped on the accelerator, accelerated, and sped away from him. Behind him, Wei Shayan's furious voice came from afar, "AI! My car!" Soon, it became the background in the vast sunset. She drove her Ferrari back to the villa she shared with Pei Ziyan, got out of the car, and told the gatekeeper who came out, "Return this car to Wei Shayan from Tianyi." Entered the house. Pei Ziyan is away as usual. He always comes back very late these days. Exhausted, Xiaoling took a shower and went to bed. When he woke up the next day, Pei Ziyan was sitting on the edge of the bed, lowering his head slightly to look at her. The early morning sunlight shone on the side of his face, making the light and shade uncertain. He asked, "Why do you want to find Lilay?" Xiaoling sat up from the bed and turned away from looking at him. He pulled her body over and suppressed his anger. "I'm asking you a question." "I don't want to see you both lose," Xiaoling said. "Pei Ziyan, I'm very tired." "So you went to beg him?" Pei Ziyan's hand was so strong that it hurt her shoulder. "Xiaoling, when will it be your turn to intervene in the outside world? What do you know? I told you a long time ago that I can win against him. Why don't you just stay at home? What's the point of asking Lilay to let me go because of your plea?" Xiaoling always knew that he didn't like her interfering in business, but she still felt sad to hear him accuse her like this. "I am a human being, not your puppet. I don't need to report everything to you," she said. Pei Ziyan said coldly, "My patience is limited, don't let me find out a second time." She was frightened by the sinister tone in his words, and her body trembled slightly as she recalled those harsh past events. He felt it immediately and relaxed the strength on his hand. "Take good care of the baby," he softened his voice. "From now on, we will live a good life as a family of 3. She also wants to live a good life and at least create a peaceful environment for her children. Since she couldn't care about the fight between Pei Ziyan and Lilay, she simply turned a blind eye and recorded the song step by step to catch up with the announcement. Her previous album sold well, and many fans have long been calling for a concert. However, now that she is pregnant, she cannot hold such a physical activity as a concert, so she had to compromise and hold a small-scale fan meeting. The lights at the meeting were bright, and the smoke on the moving stage was misty, like a dream. She sat in a special swing chair and sang Long Missing with soft accompaniment. A touch of sadness lingered in the air, and many fans had red eyes off the stage. Perhaps I was infected by such an atmosphere. The atmosphere at the venue was surprisingly good. In the next interactive session, everyone was very measured and asked her some questions about her hobbies and daily activities, which were not pointed. Until, a fan stood up. "Xiaoling," she asked with curiosity, "can you tell us about your love life? According to the news circulated within the emperor, you and Pei Ziyan are often seen walking together. Is it true?" She was quiet for a moment, and then said with a formulaic smile, "Yes. Her child will be born in 7 months, and there is no point in hiding her relationship with Pei Ziyan. It is better to let people know that they are in love than to suddenly reveal their pregnancy in the future and cause a mess of speculation." There was a commotion among the crowd. "Oh my God, the rumors are actually true." Someone's face flushed with excitement. "I just said that Xiaoling is so beautiful, elegant, and can sing well. She will definitely be with a great man." That's right, many people agreed, the emperor's big boss is a perfect match for Xiaoling. "Please take a photo. Xiaoling, please take some group photos for us to see sometime." A group of people were chattering and chattering. Those present were all her die-hard fans. They did not make malicious speculations about the news that she and Pei Ziyan were together like some people from the outside world, but gave their blessings one after another. Xiaoling looked at them, still smiling gracefully, but she didn't feel happy at all. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 426. Chapter 426 Announcement of Pregnancy. Her eyes swept across them, and suddenly, she stopped in the corner of the last row of the field. My heart skipped a beat and suddenly tightened, and my hands unconsciously clenched into fists. There, in the shadow against the wall, stood a man, wearing inconspicuous clothes and sunglasses, looking silently in her direction on the stage. The figure was so familiar and haunted her that even though he was so far away and most of his face was obscured by sunglasses, she still recognized who he was at a glance. Li Lei. This name tossed and turned on the apex of my heart, causing burning pain. All the noise around her became the background. She could no longer hear the fans' questions and blessings, and could only look at him blankly, with a thousand-year glance. Xiaoling, Xiaoling, the host called her. Seeing that she was still, he simply took a few steps forward to block her sight. The fans just asked you the question, but you haven't answered it yet. She just came back to her senses and looked at the host blankly. The host had experienced many battles, and he knew just by looking at her eyes that she had just been distracted, so he smiled and asked the fans' question again calmly, Xiaoling, how far are you and Boss Pei now? Did you hold hands? Or, huh? The host gave her an ambiguous smile and winked at her kindly, and the audience cheered even louder. This question. She forced herself not to look at Li Lei, but his gaze from the corner was like a thorn in her back. In front of him, the answer I had prepared suddenly couldn't be spoken. In a blink of an eye, another fan shouted loudly, Xiaoling, I still support you and Tianyi's powerful boss. He started a war with Pei Ziyan for you. It's very touching. You should think about it. Well, fans are also divided into different matching camps. This is why those who support Li Ling's pairing are unhappy. Xiaoling was suddenly shocked. Yes, Li Lei was still at war with Pei Ziyan. If he didn't let him give up completely, what would he do if he and Pei Ziyan were really fighting to the death? She didn't want to see them both lose. After clearing her thoughts, she mustered up the courage, looked at the familiar figure in the corner, and said, I know that Tianyi's boss is also very good. I am very grateful to him for giving me a wonderful relationship. But, we broke up and that relationship has long since passed. I wish him happiness, that's all. Under the stage, many people were sighing. Is there really no possibility of recovery? A die-hard Li Lingpei fan asked. Xiaoling shook her head. The man in the shadow remained silent. Xiaoling was not sure what he meant. Did he listen to what he just said? He hesitated and continued, I am very happy with Zi Hung now. He is very good to me. She slowly scanned the whole place and no longer looked in Li Lei's direction. I am pregnant with Pei Ziyan's child. Nanny. What? What? As soon as these words came out, the crowd exploded. Xiaoling, is this true? Don't scare me. Oh my god, this is so unexpected. Are you making progress so fast? Xiaoling, do you and Boss Pei have any plans to get married? How many months old is the child? Is it a boy or a girl? Wow, your baby must be very cute, I'm really looking forward to it. She didn't dare to look in Li Lei's direction, she just smiled lightly and accepted everyone's blessings. Cheers and laughter filled the entire space, which was bustling with life, but she only felt desolate and lonely. She didn't know how she survived the fan meeting. The rest of the time was in a haze. She had no memory of what questions others asked her and how she answered them. When the show ended, she walked backstage surrounded by staff. When she reached the audience, she mustered up the courage to look back at the far corner and found that Lillet had left without a trace. Fair enough. Bitterness spread in her heart. She closed her eyes and held back a trace of tears in the corners of her eyes. The news of her pregnancy spread as quickly as possible. In just a few dozen minutes, countless people were already discussing the matter on the internet. Her manager Chu Chen's phone number was also flooded with requests from major media outlets for interviews. Information. Chu Chen declined all media interviews. He frowned and looked at Xiaoling. "Miss Ye, you are too reckless to announce your pregnancy without the boss's permission. Moreover, the baby is not yet 3 months old. According to custom, it cannot be publicized. These folk, the custom has always been to believe it, otherwise, what if something happens to the child? This is the only heir of the boss in more than 30 years, so its importance is self-evident." Xiaoling didn't have the strength to fight with him. All her thoughts were still stuck on the startling glance she had just had at Lillet. He was wearing sunglasses just now, which obscured his face. I wonder if he looks good lately? Will he feel haggard again? Now she can't even say hello to him. Will he be very sad when he learns the news of her pregnancy today? She wanted to tell Lillet that she was carrying his child in her belly, but she couldn't. All the way down. When she arrived at the villa, Pei Xian was already waiting for her at home. He came back early today, but he didn't look kind. As soon as she walked in, he asked her with all his face, "Why did you suddenly tell her about your pregnancy?" "I'm very tired," she said tiredly, and was about to bypass him and go upstairs to the bedroom. Pei Xian's voice was a little gloomy. "From now on, you are not allowed to say a word about the baby to the outside world without my consent." Does she know what this child means? Several of his cousins are watching him eagerly, hoping that he will. If you have no heirs, you can choose an heir from the same surname in the future. Now that they know she is pregnant, how many people are ready to assassinate the child? He is not fully prepared yet. His threatening tone made Xiaoling angry. She paused and turned around. "Pei Xian, this is my child. I can tell whoever I want without your approval. This is my child too." She smiled coldly, wanting to tell him no, but she held back the words. "Didn't you say you wanted to marry me? You're going to have to prove it to me soon. Why don't you let me tell the public about the child? I just want everyone to know that I'm pregnant with your child and tell the world. Why? Are you not happy? Let everyone know." Pei Xian's eyes narrowed and he immediately understood that she actually wanted Lillet to know. His voice became more gloomy. "I said, it's not your turn to interfere in things in the mall." He understood that she wanted Lillet to give up, and call a truce. But Pei Xian couldn't bear to rely on a woman to keep his property. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 427. Chapter 427, Running Away from Home. "Do you know what I hate most about you?" Xiaoling stared at him, very angry. "What I hate most is your self-righteous face. You want to make the decision for me even when you eat and dress. Pei Xian, I am a human being, not you a plaything. You can't just give orders if you want. You are on my territory and under my protection, so you must listen to me," he said. "You're dreaming. Do you think I want to stay on your territory?" Xiaoling became even more angry, turned around and walked out of the living room door. "The world is so big, and your Pei family is not alone." At the door, the nanny car that took her back was parked. Xiaoling got into the car and angrily said to the driver, "Drive." The driver didn't know what happened and asked her, "Miss Ye, where are you going?" "Whatever," she said, "drive quickly." In the living room, Chu Chen, who accompanied Xiaoling home and witnessed the whole quarrel between the two, asked Pei Ziyan with some worry, "Boss, do you want me to chase Miss Ye back?" Pei Ziyan watched the car drive away from the half-open door and shook his head. How could Chu Chen chase the person back? Unless violent means are used, in which case Xiaoling will be even more angry. She doesn't have much scheming and can't think about too complicated situations, but she has a very strong temper. Instead of grabbing her back now to explain something she doesn't understand, it's better to just let her go and calm down the anger. All right. She is pregnant now and cannot be angry. Find a few people to follow her and protect her, Pei Ziyan said. Report to me at any time if there is any situation. Chu Chen lowered his head to accept the order, thought for a while, and asked, "Do you want to find someone to persuade her? Who to look for?" Pei Ziyan's eyes dimmed slightly. In this life, all the people close to her would not like to see him, and all his trusted confidants would not be liked by her. There wasn't even a single common friend between the two of them, and Pei Ziyan suddenly realized that their interactions were really pitiful. Let Feng Kun go and take a look, he thought for a moment and then said. Although Feng Kun is not a close relative of his, he is reliable and will take care of Xiaoling wholeheartedly. Pei Ziyan suppressed his displeasure with Feng Kun and asked Chu Chen to give the order. Chu Chen made a phone call and said to Pei Ziyan, "Feng Kun already knows and will take good care of Miss Ye." Pei Ziyan was slightly relieved. Chu Chen added, "I just received the news that Li Lei's side has retreated across the board, stopped attacking us, and started to clean up the mess on the battlefield. This is a posture of reconciliation." Pei Ziyan's eyes narrowed slightly, and he understood that it was Xiaoling who played a role in the end. She was pregnant with his child, so Li Lei retreated in despair. However, Pei Ziyan was not happy. He was a little angry. He had an illusion, as if his ability was not as good as that of a woman. What a woman could do easily, he had been entangled with the enemy for a long time and still couldn't decide the outcome. But for a moment, there was a faint hint of joy. So what if Xiaoling loved Li Lei deeply? She was already pregnant with his Pei Ziyan's child. This destined blood relationship was the eternal bond between them. "Let's stop," Pei Ziyan ordered Chu Chen. At any rate, he won. Xiaoling was sitting in the back seat of the nanny car, still in a bad mood. The driver walked around the nearby neighborhood several times. Despite the low air pressure in the car, he still asked her, "Miss Ye, where are we going?" Xiaoling couldn't think of a place to go. She raised her eyes and looked. "Seeing a hotel, just go there." Yanyuan Hotel. The driver also glanced at the hotel. This place is not far from the villa area where she and Pei Ziyan live. It is considered a wealthy area. Even the hotels are high-end. This Yanyuan Hotel is one of the best 5-star hotels in the city. The driver obeyed and drove over. "Ms. Ye, do you want to check in?" he asked tactfully. "I will help you check in." Okay, she wanted to find a place to be quiet, away from Pei Ziyan, and take a breath of fresh air. If she continued to stay in his territory and accept his endless protection and control, she felt like she would go crazy. The driver completed the formalities quickly. She put on her sunglasses, turned up her collar, lowered her head, and entered the room inconspicuously. It is a luxurious presidential suite. The floor-to-ceiling windows on the 19th floor overlook the night view of the nearby city. She settled down, thanked the driver, closed the door, and then breathed a sigh of relief. "I have been under too much pressure recently and am in a bad mood. Now when I relax, I feel a slight pain in my lower abdomen." She was worried that something was wrong with her baby, so she lay down on the bed and fell asleep in a short time. Suddenly she heard the doorbell ringing. She opened her eyes and asked, "Who is it?" "Feng Kun," a gentleman's voice came from the door. "Feng Kun? Why is he here?" Xiaoling was a little surprised, but she still got up and opened the door to let him in. Feng Kun was carrying large and small bags, including nutritious porridge, pillows for pregnant women and some daily necessities. "Why are you having a bad temper again?" he said warmly, like a big brother. "You run away from home at such an old age, you are about to become a mother." He was handling things in the company when he received a call from Chu Chen, and rushed over. It's okay if he didn't mention it, but when he mentioned it, Xiaoling got angry again. "That's not my home." Feng Kun shook his head helplessly and smiled, then opened the food box and asked her to eat something first. "I'm afraid the food in the hotel won't suit your taste, so I specially brought porridge from near the company. In her previous life, she liked eating at that restaurant." Xiaoling looked at the cooked glutinous rice porridge. The sweet smell made her forget all the things she was angry about. After eating, the warm feeling in her stomach spread to her limbs, making her whole body relax. Feng Kun said, "I stayed for almost one night and then went back. Mother Zhou has given birth to 2 sons and has taken care of several grandchildren. She is very experienced in caring for pregnant women. You are in an extraordinary period now, so you should think more about your baby." He never mentioned Pei Xian, so as not to arouse her rebellious mentality. After Xiaoling heard this, she calmed down and said okay in a muffled voice. Feng Kun was relieved. He talked with her for a while, told her to have a good rest, and said he would pick her up tomorrow morning, and then he said goodbye and left. Getting off the elevator and exiting the hotel lobby, I didn't notice anyone following me. It is Xiaoyu. This afternoon, Xiaoyu was recording a song in the recording studio, but suddenly she found that the whole company was exploding, and everyone was talking about the news that Yexin Ling was pregnant with Pei Xian's child. What? Yexin Ling is pregnant with Pei Xian's child? This news was like a bolt from the blue, so shocked that Xiaoyu couldn't recover for a long time. No wonder Yexin Ling is qualified to live in Brother Zi Hung's house. No wonder when she went to see Brother Zi Hung to celebrate his birthday that night, Brother Zi Hung carefully protected Yexin Ling. It turns out that all this is because of the evil seed in that bitch's belly. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 428. Chapter 428 Besieged. Xiaoyu was jealous and angry, her face twisted. After the distortion, there is an unprecedented panic. What should I do? Yexin Ling didn't know what means she used to seduce Brother Zi Hung and became pregnant with Brother Zi Hung's child. Will Brother Zi Hung marry her? No, we must not let that happen. She has seen a lot of things where mother is more valuable than son, and this is almost the only shortcut for a Cinderella from a grassroots background to marry into a wealthy family. Even Xiaoyu himself had planned this path. Unfortunately, she has not yet succeeded. How can we watch Yexin Ling succeed? Xiaoyu made up her mind that she could not keep this child. Just as she was pacing back and forth at the end of the corridor, thinking of a plan, she saw Feng Kun walking out of the elevator while talking on the phone. She heard Feng Kun say in a helpless tone, "Okay, I understand, Xiaoling has a bad temper. Don't irritate her anymore. I will settle her well. It's just running away from home. It's not a serious problem." What? Yexin Ling ran away from home? Xiaoyu's mind suddenly became more active. God help her. If Yexin Ling had been living with Pei Xian, it would be difficult for her to take action. However, she actually ran away from home to commit suicide. It was a great opportunity to murder others. She immediately followed Feng Kun secretly and also came to Yanyun Hotel. She secretly wrote down Xiaoling's room number and wandered around the hotel, only to find that there were several familiar men nearby, either staying or reading. Their muscles bulged under seemingly ordinary clothes, and they were obviously all of them a good hand in fighting. Xiaoyu searched the memory bank and found that these people were all bodyguards sent by Pei Xian. She understood that it would be too risky to take action now. She may have been seen by the bodyguards a long time ago, and the surveillance cameras of Yangon Hotel are not perfect. Whether it is poisoning or pretending to hit someone, it will be difficult to do it perfectly. She quickly gave up the idea of murdering Xiaoling herself. Seeing Feng Kun saying goodbye to Xiaoling and leaving the hotel, Xiaoyu also left as if nothing had happened. She dressed up, went to an internet cafe, and posted a message using her proxy IP. Yexing Ling was unruly after becoming pregnant. She checked into a room with a wild man in room 1903 of the Anyun Hotel. The fetus in her belly was really Pei Xian's plant. In just a few minutes, there were countless clicks and views. I have to say that although Xiaoyu was maliciously slandering, to a certain extent, she really guessed the truth. People love to hear gossip, not to mention another breaking news about Ye Xingling's pregnancy just broke out today. Oh my god, for this grassroots female star to be favored by Pei Xian and conceive a child, it's like smoke rising from the graves of her ancestors. How could you still be so bold as to book a room with another man during pregnancy? She is so carefree. Is it really true that the child in her belly is not Pei Xian's son? The crowd was excited. Many media and busybodies rushed to Yangon Hotel immediately, wanting to verify with their own eyes whether the news on the internet was true. Not long after, people gathered outside Yangon Hotel. Xiaoling has been feeling sleepy very easily recently. After saying goodbye to Feng Kun, she fell asleep on the soft big bed again. Suddenly, the phone in the room rang. She was sleepy and didn't want to reach out to pick it up, but the bell kept ringing. She tossed and turned on the bed for a long time, and finally reluctantly pressed the answer button and asked in a nasal voice, "Hello." Chu Chen's anxious voice came from the other end of the phone. "Ms. Yeah, you are at the Anyun Hotel now. Feng Kun visited your room before." Xiaoling reacted for a few seconds before remembering what happened before going to bed. "Yeah, what's wrong?" Chu Chen rarely sighed. It was probably because Feng Kun was photographed by the paparazzi when he left. The news spread to the internet, and now there are people outside. They said you are renting a room with others here. Don't come out, either. Don't open the door to anyone, you know. Besieged. Xiaoling suddenly woke up from her drowsiness. She got out of bed and carefully opened the curtains a crack. Looking outside, it turned out that there was a sea of people downstairs, not only reporters from all walks of life with guns and cannons, but also many fans. She has a headache. How could it be like this? Ordinarily, she was very careful when she came in yesterday. Feng Kun is also a master at evading tracking. How could he capsize in the gutter? Just when he was confused, he heard Chu Chen say, "Fortunately, no one took any photos, it was just a text message on the internet. Don't worry, as long as you find a way to leave the hotel, you can deny it. I didn't really book a room with anyone, so what if I left directly from the hotel?" said the silly and pregnant child Xiaoling. Chu Chen just wanted to smash the phone. He used to be Xiaoling, but now he is Yexing Ling. Why are they both the ones who don't show their IQ when they go out? He endured it again and again, resisting the urge to curse, and said, "It stands to reason that you and your boss should be in a tender relationship, so how could you come to the hotel to book a room in such a good manner? The outside world will speculate that there is something wrong with your relationship, or like what you see on the internet as the message said, there is a third party. Miss Ye, there is no need to photograph you with another man. As long as you walk out of this hotel, there will be enough material for others to use." Oh, Xiaoling realized later, then what should I do? She was too lazy to worry about these things. Anyway, Pei Xian and Chu Chen would be more worried than her, and they would be smarter and have more ideas than her. "You can wait at ease in the hotel," Chu Chen said quickly. "As expected, someone will be there to pick you up." Xiaoling said she understood, hung up the phone, and sat on the sofa to wait. She was very glad that she had booked the Anyun Hotel. The security here was tight and the staff were well trained. No matter how much reporters and fans made noise outside the door, they could not sneak into her room. She was a little worried again. The security measures were so tight. How could the person who was responding to her get in? After waiting for about half an hour, there were knocks on the door, 3 long and 2 short, which sounded like some kind of mysterious code. Xiaoling guessed that the receptionist had arrived, so she opened the door and saw 2 cleaners, pushing a cleaning cart for cleaning the guest rooms, sneaking in quietly. The door closed again. She looked at the tall cleaner, who was about 50 or 60 years old. He had dark skin, wrinkles on his face and hands, but a strong build, and a calm look in his eyes. Obviously he was a stranger, but she felt inexplicably familiar. Xiaoling, when he spoke, it was a sharp voice. Xiaoling was caught off guard. Surprise and excitement flashed across her expression. Why did he come in? These days, she has been missing her all the time, and now seeing her face to face is like a lifetime ago. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 429. Chapter 429. Special Effects Makeup Artist. Her eyes were hot and she was ready to cry. Lilei took a few steps forward and held her in his arms for a long time. I miss you so much, he said. She then came back to her senses and gently broke away from him. I am already Peixians. His expression dimmed, but in the blink of an eye, he forced himself to smile. So what? When you were in trouble, he couldn't save you as fast as me. He turned around in front of her. Xiaoling, look, I look good in this outfit, right? Let's take you out. When he said this, his expression was so natural, as if all the unhappiness and disagreements between them had never happened in the past few days. He didn't even ask her why she stayed in Yanyun Hotel without any problems, nor what happened to the child in her belly. His attitude made Xiaoling relax. Lilei told her his plan, asking her to disguise herself as a cleaner and sneak out of the hotel with them. For a moment, Xiaoling was a little dazed. She had been in the entertainment industry for so many years, and she had seen a lot of special effects makeup techniques, large and small, but this was the first time that they used special effects makeup as a daily disguise. Seeing that she was not moving, Lilei urged him, then turned to the person who came with him and said, Ji-yun, Xiaoling will be left to you. It turned out that that person was Ji-yun. Xiaoling knew that he was the chief special effects makeup artist of Tianyi. He had numerous award-winning works, and it was said that his schedule had already been scheduled for next year. He was also dressed as a cleaner. He was bending down and taking out things from the cleaning truck in a quick and orderly manner. Silica gel, hoods, paints, brushes, piles of items were lined up all over the room. She greeted him politely, hello, Brother Yun. She has always respected people with real abilities. Ji-yun was busy with his work without raising his head. Wash your hands, feet, and face, and sit in front of the mirror. You are not very tall and have a small frame. It is not a big problem to put on old man's makeup. It's just that you dress like an old man. Being an old man is not an easy task. The gait and tone of voice must be similar. If you have never played an old man before, try to figure it out now. If you are exposed when you go out, it will not be fun. Xiaoling was stunned by his rapid-fire words, and then she responded, okay. Lilei comforted him at the side, relax, Xiaoling, follow me later, it'll be fine. Ji-yun glanced at him and said nothing, concentrating on putting makeup on her. Her image in the mirror became stranger little by little, and when she finished her makeup, a living old man suddenly appeared in front of her eyes. Xiaoling marveled at Ji-yun's technique. Even if she walked past a familiar person, she would not be recognized at all. Li Lei looked her up and down, smiled and said, "You look pretty even when you are old." Ji Yoon put the tools back into the cleaning car and answered, "In case any sharp-eyed reporter recognizes her, I have made special treatment on her face and figure. She will not look like this when she is old." Li Lei touched his nose awkwardly. Xiaoling also laughed, feeling relieved for a rare moment these days. I thought to myself, it is really not easy for Li Lei to be the boss. How many people in the company buy his respect? But then I thought about it and felt sad again. Did no one take him seriously? Will he be lonely? Li Lei didn't know what she was thinking, so he smiled when he saw her, with soft eyes. "Are you ready? Let's go out now, don't be afraid, I will always be by your side." Xiaoling nodded and took a deep breath. Over the years, she has hid from reporters a lot, but this is the first time she has swaggered out wearing special effects makeup. She was a little nervous, but she calmed down after taking a look at Li Lei, who was also dressed as a cleaner and looked calm and collected next to her. Ji Yoon stayed in the guest room to clean up the aftermath, while Xiaoling and Li Lei pushed the cleaning cart out. When she went out from the back door, she found that there were indeed many people gathered outside, including reporters and fans. A group of people were chatting animatedly, speculating excitedly on whether she was in the room or not, and whether she had ever had with a man other than Pei Zion. Li Lei's face didn't look good. Xiaoling was very embarrassed. She opened her mouth to say something to him, but he said, "Lower your head." At this moment, Xiaoling did not dare to make a mistake. She obeyed his instructions and kept her head down. She pushed the cleaning cart and walked past the group of people inconspicuously. Surprisingly, it came out so easily. He led her through the streets and alleys. 5 minutes later, they arrived at a road where a semi-old van was parked. The driver came down. It was Lao Chen, whom she had often dealt with when she was at Tianyi. He and Li Lei moved the cleaning truck they were pushing up, and then arranged for them to get on the bus. The car door was closed. Li Lei then looked at her carefully and said in a hoarse voice, "Xiaoling, you have lost weight." He also lost weight. Xiaoling's nose felt sore when she heard his concerned words, but she looked away cruelly. "Thank you for coming to save me," she said, "but in fact, Pei Zion has also arranged for someone to save me. I want to see you, even if it's only for a short while," Li Lei said in a low voice. Of course he knew that Pei Zion had also arranged people, and he also knew that the people Pei Zion arranged did the same thing as him. They all planned to dress her up before taking her out of the hotel. The two parties met in a narrow way in the hotel corridor, and Li Lei's person was knocked unconscious. The person who captured Pei Zion was the first to enter Xiaoling's room. "It's just that there is no need to let her know this," Xiaoling said. "Li Lei, you know it's impossible for us." "Why?" "Because of the child." He then brought up the thorny topic between the two of them. "Do you want to give birth to this child? Even if you don't love him?" She lowered her head. "I want to give birth to this child, but not because of Pei Zion, but because, that is my child with you, Li Lei." Her hand touched her lower abdomen habitually, and there was a gentleness in her eyes. The street lights on the roadside shone through the car window on her profile, soft and peaceful. Li Lei found that she was so happy when the child was mentioned. Maybe she didn't love Pei Zion, but she really loved the child in her belly. "Is it more important than me?" Li Lei asked sadly. "This is different," Xiaoling said softly. "You can still live well without me, Li Lei. But if I don't want the baby, it will." She couldn't go on, not wanting to put even half of it in the wrong place. Words applied to the unborn baby. Li Lei's heart was as sharp as a knife. "What's more," Xiaoling said with determination, softly finishing her attack, "I don't dislike Pei Zion as much as you think." His world seemed to collapse before his eyes. "Come back to me, come back," Xiaoling. His voice was dry, and he heard himself begging her, I can also take care of you and let you give birth to your child safely and smoothly by my side. If you don't love Pazian, don't lie to me, you don't love him at all. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 430. Chapter 430. As long as you are happy. Xiaoling never thought that Li Lei could do this. He didn't even know that the child's biological father was him, but he was still willing to let her return to him with someone else's child. Such a concession must be such a deep love. No one in this world can give her such love. However, she could not go back. She looked out the window and suppressed her sadness. The child needs his biological father, and I will not leave Pazian. Li Lei looked at her with pleading, sad and desperate eyes. She turned her head sideways, not daring to look at him. For a long time, she heard him ask softly, will you be happy? I, and my baby, Zi Hung, as a family of 3, will be happy. She used all the strength in her life to tell this big lie. Li Lei stopped persuading her and only whispered, I'll take you home. He didn't want to let go, but he had to let go because he neither dared to use force on her nor quarreled with her. She is pregnant now. No matter whose child it is, any conflict will only hurt her body. He didn't want to see her hurt. Instruct the driver to drive all the way to Pazian's villa. That area is a high-end residential area with beautiful and quiet scenery. The street lights on the tree-lined avenues in the middle of the night are soft, and the dreamy halo spreads into the distance. Li Lei asked the driver to stop the car and said to Xiaoling, will you walk with me for a while? The car was driving too fast, and he was reluctant to lose the last bit of distance in one go. She couldn't bear to leave, so she got out of the car in silence. With her head slightly lowered, she walked forward along the street little by little. He came up beside her, his shoulder was next to hers, so close that he could hear his breath. Both of them walked very slowly, with a tacit understanding not to mention a word about the upcoming separation. This short journey was a luxury for them, and they must cherish it. Testing, Li Lei reached out and took her hand. Her body stiffened slightly, and suddenly she lost her strength, unable to get away from him. She felt that Li Lei held her hand tighter, and their fingers were intertwined, as if they would never let go. It is said that a couple with their fingers intertwined can last forever. They are lying, they are all lies. At the end of the street, a villa planted with countless ivy and roses appeared, and the study window on the second floor lit up with quiet light. Xiaoling's steps paused slightly. Here we are, she said these 2 words with difficulty. It's so fast. He felt disappointed, hoping that the journey that he would never finish in his lifetime had come to an end so quickly. She turned around and looked up at him. Li Lei, from now on, you have to be good. Her voice was choked. He couldn't hold it back after all and took her into his arms. Li Lei, don't talk, just let me hold her for a while. His voice was hoarse. He hugged her carefully and closed his eyes. The beloved woman is leaving and never coming back. He was about to lose her. The last hug is like the lingering fragrance in midsummer. Xiaoling finally broke away from him gently. Forget me, she said cruelly, turned and left. Don't dare to look back or look at the person behind you. With a pale face, she stumbled into the house and went upstairs. The warmth of him holding her on his fingertips is still there, but it has been missed forever. She ran to the window, peeled off the glass of the floor-to-ceiling window, and looked downstairs. The man who longed for her was still there, raising his head and looking at the villa. His lonely figure in the midsummer night wind was heartbreaking. Her eyes were unblinking. Suddenly, he heard a voice coming from behind, Xiaoling, do you still know how to come back? She was frightened and turned around suddenly, only to see a man standing by the bedroom door. His tall figure was as lonely as the one downstairs. He has a faint smell of smoke. Pazian. She leaned against the window and backed away, wishing she could retreat behind the curtain, feeling as if she had been caught and raped. Pei Zian looked at her, his eyes fell on her body and hands, and suddenly said, Xiaoling, do you think I won't be sad? After learning that she was surrounded by people in Yanyun Hotel, he immediately sent his men to rescue her, and he waited at home. What was waiting was not his men returning to protect her, but another man holding her hand and walking tenderly with her through the long streets. And the hug in front of the door. He could see clearly from the window of his study. So it turns out that no matter how much he tried to remedy her, his status in her heart could not be compared to that of another man. He suddenly felt very tired, turned around, and walked away. Xiaoling stood there, stunned. His words echoed endlessly in her ears, do you think I have no heart? Yes. She had forgotten all about it? No, in other words, she had never thought that he, who was so powerful and cold and arrogant, could actually be sad. In her heart, Pei Zian was always omnipotent, like an arrogant and demon, and everyone could only tremble in front of him. However, he, who is so omnipotent, is now heartbroken. Pei Zian had never looked weak in front of her, so much so that she had forgotten that he was also a mortal of flesh and blood. Xiaoling leaned her back against the floor-to-ceiling glass behind her and squatted down little by little. What did she do? Not to mention hurting Li Lei, even Pei Zian. Does Pei Zian deserve his crime? She didn't know, she only knew that she was also very sad. I don't know how long I squatted on the ground until the sky turned white and Joe's mother walked in. Oh my God, Miss Yet! She exclaimed in disbelief, and helped Xiaoling up from the ground. Why are you squatting here? Are you okay? Your face is so bad. Come on, I'll help you lie down on the bed for a while. Do you want me to help you? A doctor? She said a lot of words, but Xiaoling didn't listen. Ma Zhou helped her to the luxurious double bed, poured hot water and covered her with a blanket. She was extremely worried and kept asking Xiaoling if she wanted to call a doctor. Xiaoling shook her head feebly and wrapped herself in a quilt to rest. Lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling in a daze, recalling every moment of meeting Pei Zian, all the happy and tragic past events, it seemed that he had reached such a bad stage step by step without knowing it. With Li Lei, the three of them, but no one is happy. Pei Zian once said, Xiaoling, seeing you happy is my greatest happiness. But how can one be happy? Having spent a day in a haze. The next evening, Zhou's mother came to see her. Ms. Yeah, Mr. Chu Chen called and said there is something urgent. I won't answer. Mr. Chu Chen said that it was really an urgent matter. Zhou's mother was very embarrassed. He said that Mr. Pei could not be contacted all day long. Can't be contacted all day? No, it's impossible. Pei Zian is extremely power-hungry and extremely focused on his career. Xiaoling still remembers that one year he had pneumonia, and he was semi-conscious with a fever and still insisted on holding conference calls. How could a man like this lose contact? End of this chapter.